Suprabhat, good morning, everyone. Before I actually start this, my talk or whatever, my address, I would like to first thank Mr. Amitabh Chaudhary, who was relentless, was absolutely unforgiving, and he made sure that we all come together. And some of us who are here presently, present, and some of you, the people who have joined us online. So I'd like to welcome everyone. I would like to thank Mr. Amitabh and thank all of you who have made this possible. Mrs. Gamblin, Shakuntala Gamblin, is a very old friend of mine, my batchmate, and we were there in Government of India at the same time. We were in Health Ministry at the same time. And Ashok ji and Dinesh ji and all the distinguished guests on the dais, off the dais, and people who have joined online. Now, before I came here, actually, I made some points. Actually, I left Health Ministry way back in 2017. And a lot of things have happened in the meantime, both in the pharmaceutical sector and otherwise also. A lot of good work has been done. A lot of rules, regulations, medical devices rules, and all kinds of things, all various types of things have been done. Various initiatives have been taken. I'll just make just 5 points, just 5 points. The first point has already been made by all the speakers. How important is the pharmaceutical sector? When we are talking about pharmaceutical sector, then we are obviously talking about medicines, we are talking about medical devices, we are talking about cosmetics, we are talking about vaccines. And everyone, you all know how important is this, not in the nation's economy, but also in the public health care, in the employment generation, and how important a role it plays for this nation to become a Viksit Bharat, a developed country by 2047, which is the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister, and which is actually the vision of all of us, all Indians. And it has a very strategic importance that we generally tend to lose sight of. Now, just imagine the API that which we import from other countries like China, or for that matter, from Italy and from other countries. Gradually, India is also strengthening itself in that area. And how important is that? Because when you have something like a pandemic or something, you really require this API. And so it has, the pharmaceutical sector itself is extremely important from the strategic point of view. And it has already been mentioned how important is our exports, which is more than 50% of the $56 billion pharmaceutical industry that we have already talked about. Amitabh ji has already talked about, like, the importance of generic drugs. And I had the good fortune of actually working in the health ministry in the drug sector for 4 years, from 2010 to 2014. And we have seen in international fora, in international meetings, how different countries, including the developed countries, how, with what respect they actually look at India, for the medicines, for the drugs, and for the vaccines and everything. And now all of us, we know how important are the medical devices and how technology is changing fast, and it's a sunrise sector, and India has to contribute well if it is to remain competitive in the whole world. And when we're talking about such a big sector, such an important sector, we have hardly, not even 3,000 people actually working in the regulatory framework, both in the states and the center. So that is something that we have to look at, that whether this is enough, the number of manpower, whether their skill base is adequate, the resource base is adequate. And in the 12th five-year plan, the government actually decided to actually take up a lot of drug testing laboratories, a lot of medical devices testing laboratories, and a lot of infrastructure development has taken place. And that's going on. But now we have to find out whether the manpower behind the machines, behind these medicines and all that, whether what kind of structure do we have. And let's not forget, the second point is drugs. When we are talking about drugs is in the concurrent list of the Constitution. That means both the center and the states have an important role to play as far as the drugs regulation is concerned, as you might have seen. When we are talking about center and states, and obviously the states differ, the infrastructure differ, the resource base differs. So it actually takes us to the third point, which is the non-uniform implementation of the various acts and rules. That has also been talked about. Now that creates a problem. If you go to different states, I'm sure about it, like, you will see absolutely non-uniform implementation. Somewhere the implementation is very good, the enforcement is very good, and in some places it's not that as good. So there is a problem there. There is a challenge there. Now, if it's in the concurrent list of the Constitution, that means if we have to do this cadre or do whatever that you have to do, you have to take everybody on board. You have to take not just the center. Center cannot just legislate and just, it has to take all the state governments on board. So now is the time when we have to build that consensus in all states so that everybody comes on board, so that this kind of, vision that we all have, that can actually achieve fruition. Now, when we are looking at this problem, the fourth point that I would like to just touch upon is the problem of spurious drugs. That everybody knows. Though our central drug testing laboratories, our regulatory framework, our state governments, everybody is trying. And I quite vividly remember we had started a national medicine survey with the help of National Institute of Biologicals way back in 2013-14. And that gave us some good result. It was a very, very massive survey. And, when we go to when you have these kind of discussions in Geneva, in WHO and other places with the international, those other countries, every time they say, no, many of them, I will not say everybody, but some of them have doubts about the efficacy about some of our generic drugs, which is very, very misplaced. I mean, if you see, some of our generic drugs are absolutely as effective, as good as the innovator drug. But, there are cases, there are episodes when we see there are spurious drugs, and that this particular regulatory mechanism that we have, both at the center and the states, I know that is a big challenge for all these people who are actually working. So there we have to not just talk about the testing labs, we have to have more testing labs with people who are better skilled, use of better technology, track and trace and all kinds of things have come to play, and better enforcement. And then in the courts also we have to kind of see. So then that actually brings us to the fifth point, which is an important point that I would like to put forth before you. We always think that only pharmacists are enough to do the job, to get the job done, or to get the output. No. I think you can see now is a time, you look at US FDA, otherwise also. Here you would require to have a multidisciplinary approach. Now, what is multidisciplinary approach? You also require legal experts, because they will actually go to court, they will fight those cases better than pharmacists. You require IT experts who can help you in adoption or in use of technology in a much more effective way. So you require those people in your whatever cadre or structure or whatever, the regulatory mechanism. You require these people. You require law and order, the law enforcing, those officials. Maybe people from the state police service, from the Indian police service, from otherwise also, from the customs. You require people from tax, who tell you exactly, what is to be done, in some cases. So it has to be a multidisciplinary approach, which is extremely, extremely important. Now, coming back to, the need of highly skilled manpower, for example, when we are talking about this, both in the center and states, in both places. Now, let's look where do we have pharmacists? We have pharmacists working as regulators, both in the CDSO in the center and also in the states. Okay. Number two, they work as academicians. As academicians were in the NIPERS. Now, they are also pharmacists. They are also in NIPERS, for example. They are production managers, they are chemists in manufacturing companies like, KPL, IDPL, and, all those different PSUs, they are also working there. They're working in the private sector also. Now, we also have pharmacists in government hospitals, in other government institutions, those big institutions. We have like, in NPP and others. And there is a need to have more pharmacists in various organizations. For example, you need to have pharmacists even in organizations like, for example, DBT or NPPA and things like that. So the whole point is you require, we have to, when we are thinking about having a cadre, you have to have people from all this. Now, we have an example. We have an example before us. For example, US FDA. If you look at US FDA, you will find there are people who come from universities, experts coming from different places. They come to US FDA on deputation for some time. They learn, they contribute, and after some time, they leave that organization and there is a rotation and some other people come. So that is why, it has a multidisciplinary approach. And similarly, if we have to have a cadre, we have to think in terms of expanding it, bringing the states on board, and having people also from other disciplines, like, for example, as I just mentioned, IT plays a very, very important role these days. For example, in IT, I'm just giving it some examples. I mean, IT, I'm sure when everybody comes together and they start thinking about it, they start looking at other best practices in the world, they will come up with all this so that at least not just the regulatory framework, we have to look at this cadre where all these experts and other people, they can come and they can improve. Because our whole aim that by the time, we have this Viksit Bharat by 2047, our just pharmacy economically should not be, somewhere around maybe 150, 200 billion or $300 billion, but it should also have the regulatory framework, the support system, the entire system. It's not just regulation. It's just, everything would be there so that it can contribute to a lot of employment generation. It can contribute to the nation building, and it can actually become, now also it is one of the leading sectors, manufacturing sectors in this country. And if you have to look at like $10 trillion economy or something more than that, I think this is going to play a very, very important role. And there is not a better time than the present time when we have to all come together. We have to bring all the states on board so that at least we can bring up a particular cadre which actually, addresses all these issues that we have been talking about. Thank you very, very much for your patience. Thank you very much. Thank you.